When I do my daily walks with my dog, I will pick up branches with pretty colored leaves or pine cones that have fallen to the ground. So you can make your walks with your dog or your kid an opportunity to be creative and fun and bring some of that beautiful fall foliage in. Today on the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, I have a kind of a holiday themed show. In part one, I talk about how to use planning to make holiday meal planning less stressful and more fun. And then I talk about some gift giving strategies for your immediate family. It can be stressful finding something that is useful and delightful and will be appreciated. And I talk about that on this podcast episode starting now. Hey, 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 it is Thursday and I am here. It's Alegre with Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, and there might be background noise because stuff has been happening around my house. And so I'm going to try going live. We'll see how this goes. This might not work out well. So anyway, happy Thursday. As always, I am here to talk about how you as a working mom, working parent, caregiver can prioritize yourself and your goals by harnessing the power of planning. And today I have two holiday themed topics. You might be wondering, hey, Allegra, it's only November 7th. Why are we already talking about gift giving and holiday meal planning? And the reason why is because you got to plan in advance. There's a saying in the productivity world that for every 1 minute you spend planning, you save 10 minutes of doing. And in addition to all the time savings, there's also a huge decrease in stress and anxiety. Okay. And if you are someone who likes the holidays and likes to do a lot of things during the holidays, then there's a lot of added stress. It could be eustress. New word of the day there, eustress, eustress. Eustress is actually considered positive stress. So stress that you might enjoy. So maybe it is eustress, which is, kind of lights a fire under you and gets you excited, but it's still a mental load. And my goal is to help you enjoy the holidays for yourself, not just enjoy doing it for others, but for you to enjoy it for yourself. And the way you do that is through planning. So, I have two topics for you today. The first one, we're going to talk about holiday meal planning. And the second one, we're going to talk about gift giving. And so, if you celebrate, we all celebrate holiday meals. It might not be this time of the year, but the same information is relevant whether you're planning a holiday meal in for Lunar New Year, for Nowruz, for Easter, for whatever holiday meal you might be planning. The strategies are still going to be the same. So let's start with holiday meal planning. Oh, by the way, I know I usually do some chit chat, but unless you want to hear me talk about electrical panels, that is what's going on in my mind right now. So instead, I'm going to talk about these two topics rather than doing chit chat. And as always, if you comment in the chat, I can see it and am happy if you have any questions to answer them. So, holiday meal planning. Again, this is all about reducing stress and anxiety for you. And the first thing with holiday meal planning is to start to uncover all of the invisible work that goes into meal planning, right? Like it's not enough to say, to take your planner and write down, okay, I'm going to have a holiday meal on this day. That's not enough. There's all of this stuff that leads up to the day itself. So, step one is to name that invisible work. So, first of all, obviously, you're going to have to go grocery shopping. And when I have a big celebratory meal that I'm planning, so if I'm having a dinner party of any kind, I tend to shop in at least 2 trips. And I just know that I'm gonna have 2 trips going in. I feel like it's even that little thing, that little knowing that you're gonna spend you're gonna go to the grocery store more than once actually helps reduce stress because then you're not like, "Oh, shoot, I forgot something." Nope, you're always gonna forget something. You're always gonna run out of something at home in the interim. So just know that you're gonna have to do 2 trips, okay? And I like to do the first trip 6 days before. So whenever your holiday meal is, go ahead and write down that day and then back up and say 6 days before, you're gonna do your first grocery trip, and then 3 days before, you're gonna do your second trip. And that way, at least for me, that allows me to skip going grocery shopping on the weekend. So let's just talk about Thanksgiving specifically because that's the holiday meal coming up that I'm thinking about. So I put into my planner. So let's look at, I'm just going to flip to my planner right now. So Thanksgiving is on November 28th this year. So I am putting in my planner on November 22nd, the Friday before, I'm writing first grocery trip. And then on November 25th, I'm writing second grocery trip. And it's interesting because I actually go to different grocery stores for those 2 trips. For the first trip, the one happening on the 22nd, and I don't know if you can hear all the noise going on around me. Hopefully you can. Hopefully my unidirectional microphone is doing its job. But on the 22nd, I go to the grocery store that's a little bit further away, but they have more things that I like. That's Sprouts. They have more products that I like, specialty products that I can't get anywhere else. Then on the 25th, I'm actually that Monday, I'll do my second grocery trip at Ralph's, which is closer to me and also has a great selection, but it doesn't have some of the specialty products that I like to get from Sprouts. So those are my 2 grocery trips. Now, I also the nice thing about doing most of my shopping on Friday and Monday is that it still gives me 2 days to go to the grocery store if I have any last minute emergencies. And I try to be done, done, done. So if I have a last minute emergency, I know that that's going to happen. That grocery store run's going to happen on the 19th. So baked in at least 2 grocery store days that give you enough room so that if you have to do a third emergency trip for that thing that you ran out of at the last minute, it can happen and not be stressful. I try to avoid the grocery store on Wednesday. Last year actually was I know for sure I was able to get all my grocery shopping done in just those 2 days, and I was so happy because I was like, "Woohoo, no grocery store for me on Tuesday or Wednesday. Phew." Okay, so that's the first thing. Then backing into that further, you have to think about, okay, so if you're hosting a meal, having people over, you're gonna have to think about setting up your table. And that could be something that you start doing. Like if I'm hosting people at my house, usually I'll start pulling stuff out around Friday so that I can just kind of do it in a leisurely way, setting up my table. And also that allows me to sort of like add and subtract things like decor pieces to the table. So that's something that I start doing again around that same day as the first grocery trip. Even if you're not hosting people though, you might want to have started gathering decorative objects. And this can be something, this doesn't have to be something that you buy. When I do my daily walks with my dog, I will pick up branches with pretty colored leaves or pine cones that have fallen to the ground. So you can make your walks with your dog or your kid an opportunity to be creative and fun and bring some of that beautiful fall foliage in. I love finding pieces. There are these big trees that grow on my street, and around this time of year, they're starting to have some red leaves, but most of them are still in the green yellow spectrum. And inevitably, the wind will knock some of those leaves down, and I will collect some green, some yellow, some red leaves, and I will put them in a vase, and that will be part of my decor. Another thing I have to do is that I actually have these battery powered candles that I like to use during the holidays because I don't like to have lit candles all over the place. And I use rechargeable batteries. And so if I'm going to use those candles, I have to start recharging my batteries. So again, that's an invisible task that you might not see, but it takes half a day for them to be charged. And so you want to set that up before you are before you need them. Okay. So again, this is just making the invisible visible. So here's some other things that you might need to do. So I'm just going to shout things out. Feel free to grab a piece of paper and a writing instrument and write these down. So if you're hosting a holiday party, invisible task is deciding who to invite. And that is something that you absolutely wanna do immediately, right? If you're hosting people for Thanksgiving, then November 7th is a great time to decide who to invite, and, you know, you probably need to invite them as soon as possible, so then you need to invite people. So you could put, let's say you're gonna put down November 9th or November 10th as the day that you decide to invite people. That gives people a nice 2.5 weeks to, plan accordingly and, come over, and then you're going to right, you have the 2 to 3 grocery shopping trips. You have to figure out whatever decor you wanna do. You might have to wash or dust, like, for instance, if you're bringing out plates that maybe you haven't used in a little while, you might have to wash those because they might have accumulated some dust or something like that. Um, you also will need to, for me, charge batteries for candles. Another thing you might be doing kind of around this time of year might also be, and this is kind of related to the holiday meal planning and kind of not, but you might also be thinking about doing any sort of photographs for seasonal cards that you might be sending out. And sometimes the reason why I say it might be related to the holiday meal is because a lot of times what my family does is, because that's the day when we are all together with our extended family, we will see if we can get in touch with a photographer who's able to swing by and take photographs of us. And if not the day of Thanksgiving, it might be the day before, the day after, because the family's kind of gathered. So that's why I say that it might be related to holiday meal planning. And so yeah, if everyone's together, get a family portrait taken. Okay. And then the next thing you're thinking about when it comes to the holiday meal is the order of making things. So I like to prepare things, in advance as much as possible. So, for instance, if I have time the weekend before Thanksgiving, I actually might do some cookie baking, because cookies have a good shelf life. They can sit in an airtight container and they're still delicious. So that just kind of breaks it up. And then Wednesday morning, I will actually start doing things like boiling potatoes, because I like to make twice, I guess, twice cooked potatoes. So first I boil them, then I mash them and bake them. And so on Wednesday, I will actually boil the potatoes. I will then mash them and season them and put cheese across the top, and then I'll cover it and put it in the fridge. So it's essentially, it just needs to be baked, but I make it the day before. And then I will also make the popover batter. I like to make popovers for Thanksgiving. It's this, bready concoction that's very eggy, and actually, when you break it apart, it kind of looks like custard inside. In England, they actually have a similar type of bread that is called, oh, I'm gonna blank on the name now. Does anyone know what it is? Oh, Yorkshire pudding. Yes, Yorkshire pudding. So Yorkshire pudding is very similar to a popover, except Yorkshire pudding, they actually will use like suet, which is, I guess, like some leftover parts of like roast beef and the fat and stuff like that. They'll use that, so it'll be a savory bread. So I love popovers. They're so rich. They have so much butter and milk and egg in them that I reserve them for the holidays. And so, but I make the popover batter the day before, because actually I feel like the popovers turn out better when the batter has a chance to sit overnight. So I make that the night before, and then it sits in the fridge overnight. And then so the cookies are made, the potatoes are made, the popover batter is made. That just leaves you to, the following day making whatever your main course is, and then whatever vegetable side dishes are, because like you want your vegetables to be as fresh as possible. So I try not to, cut them or prepare them in any sort of way until the day of. But then on Thursday, what I do is I get up, I start cooking popovers, and then I also make whatever my main dish is going to be, and the uh the side dish in terms of the vegetables. And it just makes it so much easier to break up your cooking a little bit, right? So baking done, cookies done on Saturday, potatoes and popover batter done on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, you just start kind of assembling everything. And that's how I really make it so that Thanksgiving feels very fun and calm and not stressful for me. I also do store buy some things. I usually store buy like the cranberry dressing and oh, I forgot that I also like to make sweet potatoes, and those I will bake the Wednesday before, and then I will assemble them, whether I'm putting marshmallows on them or not putting marshmallows on them, that will happen on Thursday. And then I actually don't make pie for Thanksgiving because an aunt of mine who always comes to Thanksgiving dinner always makes pie, but that would be something where you could prepare the filling on Wednesday and then you could just bake it on Thursday so it's fresh. Or you could bake the whole pie on Wednesday. I actually prefer pumpkin pie that's cold. So you might want to bake it on Wednesday and let it sit in the fridge. I feel like the flavors also really develop nicely in a pumpkin pie when it sits overnight. So, that could be something that you do on Wednesday, and I actually will see, I have this paper here that says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so when I have something big happening, like a holiday meal, I will put what I'm doing. Actually, here's this other piece that I had already made, where you can see, Wednesday, AM, make and bake cookies. So, just to help break it down because thinking about it in advance just helps to make it real for you. It helps to make your subconscious mind is working on it. And it just, brain science has shown that it decreases your stress when you write things down. So take advantage of that and write things down. And your holiday meal planning is going to feel so much easier. I'd love to know any tips or tricks you have for how you do your holiday meal planning. Please feel free to comment, even if you're watching the recording. I do get those comments. And one other thing to think about, I like to have table linens when we're having a nice meal, and my table linens all when I wash them, I starch them, and then I hang them up to dry in, kind of folded a little bit. And so when they dry in that nice starched condition. And so I don't have to wash those in advance. But the nice thing about starching your linens, and when I starch my linens, what I do is I wash them and then I put them through an extra rinse cycle and I just put in a couple tablespoons of cornstarch and let it run through the rinse cycle. And that way it permeates the fibers. And the nice thing about that is not only will it give you a nice flat tablecloth if it dries properly, if it doesn't dry properly, you can iron it and you'll have a nice flat tablecloth. But the great thing about it is that the starch actually provides an extra layer of protection against staining. So that way, when you go to wash your tablecloth after the meal, it's actually easier to wash. So, little tip there. So, you might want to prepare if you're going to use tablecloth or napkins or anything like that, you might want to run them through the rinse cycle of your washer with, 2 to 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, depending on how full the washer is when you run it. And it'll be much easier to clean them and you'll get nice sharp corners when you iron them if you want to do that thing. If I have time, sometimes I will iron my napkins. If I don't have time, whatever. I'm not super picky about that. So, hopefully that helps you have a much calmer holiday meal, whatever you are celebrating this year. And of course, I'd love to hear your tips and tricks for keeping a holiday meal planning fun and sane. So, the second topic I want to talk about is gift giving. And it is something that I have been thinking about a little bit because in our family, we kind of have a general rule, which is that anything that is purchased after October 1st, if it's not needed right away, that thing gets put away in a closet and will be a gift. And the reason why is that, I don't know how you were raised, but I was definitely raised in a culture of having more gifts under the tree m signaled some sort of happiness in my childhood brain, right? It was like, "Oh, I don't know what it is. maybe it was a form of feeling loved or cared for or whatever. However, I am now 50 and there just aren't a lot of things I need. And I don't wanna buy things just to have things. I feel like I like my house the way it is. I love everything around, and if you have been following me for a while, then you might have heard that 2024 has actually been the year of what I've called the grand edit. And the grand edit has been about really optimizing my surroundings so that everything I see has a purpose and I can find everything I need. And so my whole family, when you get to 50, if you're lucky, my friends and I, we talk about the fact that like, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do with these things that I don't use anymore that I used to use?" And it's like, wow, we're so blessed that we've lived long enough that we have things that served a purpose at one time and no longer serve a purpose. And we're also so grateful for the fact that we were able to afford whatever it is the thing is. As I mentioned a few podcasts ago, I've been having some challenges editing my wardrobe because I have this whole category of clothing that I used to wear a lot when I owned a store called Green and Greener. And my store, it was a eco one-stop shop. And so I wore a lot of green clothing and I still love it, but green is just not my favorite color to wear. I tend to wear a lot of, reds, burgundies, pinks, and so I have this clothing that I used to wear a lot that I just don't wear a lot, but it's beautiful and I do like green, and it's also sentimental because it's tied to this former part of my life, but it's just taking up space. And that's just a metaphor for some other things in our lives. Like, for instance, my husband had an electronic guitar set that he used to use a lot, but it hadn't been touched in, let's say, 3 years. And about, you know, a year ago, I had said, "You're not really using the electric guitar kit anymore. Couldn't we free up that space and gift it to somebody who can use it?" And he wasn't ready yet. And so I said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna revisit this in like 3 months." And so I brought it up again in 3 months and he said, "I'm still not ready yet, but I'm starting to think about the idea of letting it go." And sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you just need some time to let go of something that you used to like and used to serve you, but you need to take some time for whatever reason. You need some time to make that mental transition. And eventually he was ready to let it go and we gifted it to a family whose young son absolutely adores it and uses it so much and we're grateful that it's getting used. But it can take some time to get used to that. And so coming back to gift giving, my husband and I realized that just there aren't a lot of physical things we need. And so if there is something physical we need, like for instance, if one of us needs a new pair of shoes or a jacket or whatever, for whatever reason, we will, whatever gets purchased, if it's not needed, we will save it, put it in a closet, and that will be a gift later on when we do our gift giving in December. Another thing that we've tried to prioritize as a family is the giving of experiences rather than things. So, in September, my daughter had mentioned that there was a band who she'd like to see in concert, and the concert was happening in another 6 weeks or something. It's since passed, and, concerts are not inexpensive experiences, and she said, "I want a concert, and I also wanna get a piece of merch. I want a sweatshirt," which, sweatshirts at concerts can cost 75 to $100. So, they're that's a nice gift. And so we said, "Okay, we can make the concert happen. However, the concert and that sweatshirt, those are part of your Christmas gifts." And she said, "Okay, yes, I know." So we do try to give more gifts. The other thing too is that we have a tradition that we adopted about 10 years ago, I had read an article where a journalist had said that in her effort to be more mindful in their family with gift giving, they had come up with a tradition that it just sounded really nice to me. And so when I'm struggling to think about what we're doing for the holidays, this is always something that I come back to, and it gives me direction and it calms me down. And that is this philosophy of giving 4 gifts. And the 4 gifts are something you want, something you need, something to wear, something to read. Isn't that nice? Something you want, something you need, something to wear, something to read. So my daughter had actually asked for another sweatshirt. She said, I would like 2 sweatshirts as gifts this year. I want one from this concert, and I want one she wants a Fox Racing sweatshirt because my husband wears them, and she likes his, and so she wants one. So, I have actually already started to do the gift purchasing, and the reality is that the vast majority of the time with our clothing, we buy our clothing like 99% of it is secondhand. Either eBay, I love, love, love clothing shopping on eBay, okay? If you haven't tried it yet, you should absolutely try it because the great thing about buying clothes on eBay is first of all, you have this huge selection. So you can find exactly what you want. I started clothes shopping on eBay when my daughter was born because the first year she was born, we had 2 family weddings to go to. And I knew I was not a size that I was gonna be for a long time. So, I didn't wanna spend a lot of money on I needed dresses for 2 weddings, and they were very different climates. One was in winter in the Pacific Northwest, and one was in summer in Hawaii. So, I needed very different types of clothing, and I just knew that I wasn't gonna be that size for the rest of my life, so I didn't wanna spend any real money, but I also didn't have wedding appropriate clothes that fit me because, again, I had just given birth. So, I went on eBay, and I knew for one of the weddings, I needed to get something purple because I was part of the wedding party, and the color was purple, and so I typed into eBay, "purple linen dress," and you can customize, like, everything, like sleeve length, you know, skirt length, are you looking what material you want? I wanted a purple linen dress and then all the sizes. And I found a fantastic dress, and I think it probably I don't remember what it cost me, but it probably cost me I feel like it was 20 to $30 or something like that. It's like, "Okay, great. I can afford to spend 20 or $30 for a dress that I might not wear that much." I actually ended up wearing that dress for quite a while because it was just a great linen dress, and I wore it for a couple years as I was still breastfeeding. And then, the other wedding dress, same thing. I just put in what I wanted. So eBay has become one of my favorite ways to clothing shop because the selection is incredible. There are also other online secondhand opportunities such as Poshmark, and another one is ThredUp. I've purchased great things on Poshmark and ThredUp as well, and the nice thing about Poshmark and ThredUp is that they're a little more edited, so you won't like on eBay, you also get a lot of people who are selling new things, and they might say that it's vintage or pre-owned, and so there's just a lot more quantity at eBay. So sometimes ThredUp and Poshmark are nice because they're a little more edited. They're a little bit nicer. Poshmark especially is a little bit nicer. So if you're looking for something nicer, that's a great way to go Christmas shopping. My husband likes the brand Untuckit, and I purchased him a couple of Untuckit shirts on Poshmark. And by the way, when I say secondhand, secondhand doesn't necessarily mean used because you probably have things in your closet that you purchased that you've never worn. They still have the tags on. And a lot of those things end up on Poshmark and eBay when people finally realize, you know what? I've never worn this thing. I'm never gonna wear this thing. I'm gonna let it go. And actually, I have purchased so many things that are new with tags, but they're secondhand, right? So it's amazing. The other thing I like eBay and Poshmark for is when you come across something, maybe you see someone wearing something or you see something in an old magazine and it's no longer current in stores. What's really nice is that a lot of times you can find those things on Poshmark, eBay, or ThreadUp. And I have I have hunted for those of you listening to the Harness the Power Planning podcast, I'm making like tiger gestures with my hands. I have hunted many an item on eBay and Poshmark and found exactly the thing that I wanted, and it is so satisfying, and I always love those finds. So, as I said, we do a lot of our shopping secondhand for clothing. Really, the only thing our family buys new are underwear and athletic shoes because those just get a lot more use, and so you wanna have you want your feet to be taken care of, but I will buy specialty shoes secondhand. And the great thing is, if people aren't showing you the pictures that you wanna see to determine if that item is in good enough condition for you to buy, you can ask for more pictures. So, the people who are really knowledgeable about putting up shoes secondhand, they'll take pictures of the back sides, the underneath of the what is that called? Not is it the sole? The sole of the shoe, so that you can see how much wear the shoe has gotten, and especially you wanna see the heel to see because if someone who has used the shoe really pronates, the heel will be worn down in a weird way, and that's just not gonna be comfortable. But a lot of times you'll look at the shoes, the heels and the sole, and it'll look like it's barely been worn. And so you can decide, "Hey, yeah, I'd like to pay that amount for that shoe with that much wear." It's fantastic. But, underwear, tennis shoes, okay, yeah, we buy those new. But the vast majority of things we don't buy new. And so knowing that my daughter wanted this fox sweatshirt, I started looking on eBay. Secondhand, I was able to find a new with tags fox hood sweatshirt that I think she will really like. So again, going back to this philosophy of something you want, something you need, something to wear, something to read. So that's her something to wear. Something to read. My kiddo's really into graphic novels, and I saw this really cool graphic novel that I read about that I think she would like, and so I found that also secondhand on eBay. And something she wants is she actually asked me, she said that there's a book that she's interested in that has teased another book that's gonna be coming out. So I guess this book she's had for a year or 2, and it says, "Coming in 2024, blah, blah, blah book." She's like, "Hey, mom, I want that book." So I'm gonna get her that book. I'm gonna see if I can get it secondhand because, most of 2024 is over, but I might have to buy that new. So I'm going to buy that for her. And, so then thing that she the 4th gift is gonna be something she needs, and that's probably gonna be something like bras or, something like that. So, I really like the want, need, wear, read because 4 gifts feels substantial enough to scratch any sort of itch, at least my family might have around, the tradition of opening gifts. But it also doesn't feel wasteful. And for my husband and myself, if there's nothing that we, quote unquote, want or need, wear or read, I mean, read, I am constantly reading books. So I actually never buy myself anything for that read component for Christmas because I'm always getting books and mostly from the library. But I do, if I really love a book, I will buy a book. But my husband and I will just say, hey, why don't we go do that thing that we wanted to do as a Christmas gift to ourselves. Whether it's going to a restaurant that we haven't made time to go to, or there's actually this historical building that has swing dancing nights. where it's a meal and a night of swing dancing, and I had said to him that I would like to do that as a Christmas gift to us. And then the other thing too is that there might be events that come up around the holiday season that you wanna take part of that you can remind your family, "Hey, family, we're spending all this money to do this thing, whatever it is. For my family, we like to do this historical dance, and so we're going to the historical dance, and we also spent some money getting some clothing for the historical dance, so that's part of our family's holiday gift expenditures." But there could also be events like there's some really cool light display events that happen in my area at some of the botanical gardens, as well as at the zoo. You might want to maybe take the family to go see a show. The Nutcracker is always a seasonal favorite, but there are lots of other shows that are happening all the time that, getting tickets to those can be considered a holiday gift. You could also get people tickets to things happening in 2025, and that's a lovely thing to, put in the stocking or give at Hanukkah or put under the tree. You can still wrap it even if it's a ticket. Just print it out on your computer and you can put it in a big box if you want and make it fun like that. So start thinking about your holiday planning now, your gift giving now, and it just makes it less stressful. I already have one of the gifts for my kiddo. The other one is en route. We've already purchased all the things that we're getting for the historical dance that's coming up. And I told my husband I wanna do this jazz thing, this, swing dance thing. So, really, a lot of our gift giving is already kind of in process, thinking about it in the back of the head. And then we also kind of have our favorite go-to items for filling out, like, Christmas gifts. Like, if there isn't something that we actively need, then we can always buy a pair of Bomba socks. I don't know about you, but I love Bomba's hiking socks, and my husband got me a pair because, he it was last year, it was something I need. I can always use a pair of hiking socks because I go through them, and he got me a pair of the hiking socks, and the Bomba's hiking socks, I don't know what they weave into their hiking socks, but I have never felt more cushiony on my hike than when I wear those socks. They are magic. And so that's just one of our favorite things are the Bomba socks. And also I have a pair of Bomba slippers that are a few years old that are starting to get a hole in them. So there's always that favorite brand that you have in your family. It could be lip balm, it could be underwear, it could be socks, whatever that you can round out your gift giving with. So in our family, Bomba socks tends to be the thing that we round out because we really like them. So if you haven't checked those out, check them out. You might like them too. I've never felt a sock that actually feels different, and this sock feels different. Like their compression socks are no joke. You have to like squeeze your thumbs in there to like get them up. We always fly with compression socks because of the whole COVID thing and how it increases your chance for a blood clot, and so even though my husband and I are only 50, we always fly with compression socks, and the Bombas compression socks are the best. So that beloved brand is something that we can always round out our gift giving with. So we probably all have those brands. For my husband, it's Untuck It, that you can round out if you wanna, if your want, need, wear, read, if you're not inspired to get them something specific, then you can always go back to your favorite brand because, hey, the best gifts are the ones that are received with, excitement, and I always know that if we give a pair of Bomba socks or an Untuck It shirt, someone in our family is gonna be happy. So, that is it for this week's podcast and videocast. I hope the audio was good. As I mentioned, there was some work happening here at my house, but hopefully it worked out well. And doing a little bit of planning now is going to set you up for success as the holidays start to roll on. And by the way, if you didn't take part in the holiday the holiday planning. We wrote this book called Rock Your Holidays: 3 Simple Steps to Having Fun While Getting Things Done. This is a comprehensive workbook. It'll take you about 45 minutes to go through it, and you will have a holiday plan. So we did the workshop back in October. You can do it at your own pace by getting this book, it's actually a workbook. So as you learn, you're going to actually do it. You can also, if you prefer to learn by video, if you go to bywdreams.com, at the very top, if you click on, at the very top, it says, "Are you ready for more fun and less stress this holiday season?" Go here. We have a recorded 1-hour workshop that costs $11. So you can get that. Hold on, I can pop up the URL for that here. It is bywdreams.mailerpage.com/rockyourholidays. But again, as I mentioned, if you just go to bywdreams.com, and it's right at the very top. Are you ready for more fun and less stress this holiday season? Go here. Just click on that, and you will go to the page where you can buy the $11 video class. So if you want to follow along on video, it's only $11. You can get that at bywdreams.mailerpage.com/rockyourholidays. Also, if you are interested in 2025 in really harnessing the power of planning, the wait list for our Harness the Power of Planning course is open, and you can find that at bywdreams.mailerpage.com/HPOP. That stands for Harness the Power of Planning. So mostly the same URL as the last one, except instead of Rock Your Holidays, it is HPOP. And you can sign up for our free waitlist there. We have not picked a day yet for the Harness the Power of Planning workshop, but it is a 2-day workshop. It costs $37. 2 days, 45 minutes each day, $37. If you go to that page, the bywdreams.mailerpage.com/HPOP, you will see exactly how HPOP is laid out. And so if you want to sign up for the wait list, it's totally free, but something to think about for 2025 if you're ready to, level up with your productivity, level up with your life design, level up with prioritizing yourself and your goals. Harness the Power of Planning. The course is the way to do it. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next week. And as always, dream wild, wild dreamers. Thanks for joining us for the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen.